our translations are not, we're using Google Translate to translate. The statement we're reading in the press is that there will be a total blockade, and that since the Hamas behave like animals, we will have to respond accordingly. There are concerns being expressed of what happens to civilians who do not actually support Hamas. How do you see this statement, Ambassador?
Well, first of all, the translation was very accurate. Second, this statement is very new. It was declared less than an hour ago by our defense minister. Gaza, ironically enough, Gaza is very much linked. The economy of Gaza is very much linked to the economy of Israel in various ways. There are, in good times, there are tens of thousands of Gazans who cross the border, so to speak, every day to work within Israel, and their income, is part of the Gaza economy. Gas, electricity are supplied by Israel to Gaza. This is the arrangements and the situation, and food comes, they don't have a port, they don't have an airport, so most of the supplies come on regular days from Israel. So yes, this is a sanction that the defense minister has declared. The other quotation that you gave, that we are fighting animals, and we've seen the proof of it, does not mean that Israel will not take into consideration the rights and the livelihood of those civilians who are not part of terrorism. And as an example, I can give you that in some of the attacks that took place in the last couple of days, before attacking specific buildings, and we have been doing it for many years, phone calls or leaflets were thrown or were dropped in the areas where civilians that are not affected live, and they are asked, I would almost say kindly asked, to leave the place before Israel bombs it. I don't know, and I don't think that too many counter-terrorism elements do this. So yes, we are fighting animals, and Israel will take this into consideration when deciding what and how to do. But I'm sure that non-affected civilians, and there are many in Gaza who are not affected, who are not part of terrorism, will not be the targets. There might, and this is always true, there might be collateral damage and wounded, and probably also people killed. So people have to take this into consideration also. And I think, unfortunately, the people of Gaza are used to it, because they have been used by Hamas, who use people as human shields near schools, hospitals, and mosques.
Yes.
So those people in Gaza who know it, and many know it, would know how to act accordingly also.
Well, I think that's something that we can all hope for, that civilians who are not involved and engaged with Hamas will find a way to be safe in this moment. But those are the strongest statements probably that have ever come from Israel. But one should also contextualize that this has been the worst sort of massacre of civilians in Israel's history, and Hamas has been called today worse than ISIS for using civilians in Gaza as human shields. Ambassador, I have a last question for you. I know that this discussion in Israel may happen later, but some of the Israeli media has already started pinning the blame at the doors of Benjamin Netanyahu. We had military veterans on our program saying that while everybody is talking about intelligence failure, the Netanyahu administration was warned that something was coming from Hamas. Maybe nobody anticipated this scale, and he chose to ignore the intel. How do you see this debate on intelligence failure and the response of the Netanyahu government?
It's a very healthy debate, and I would encourage it. And I think that each and every one of us is thinking either with himself or herself or with his entourage. But this is not the time to speak about it. The time now is to eradicate terrorism, to fight terror, to give a good response to the Hamas war and to win the war. After this, I can assure you, being an ex-ambassador, but at present I'm part of the very strong and very big protest movement in Israel, and I have no problem in saying that. There will be a very tough debate on three levels. One is the intelligence failure, and I'm sure that it will be thoroughly investigated. The second is the operational level. How did the IDF not respond in the first few hours? It was a Sabbath, it was a holiday, but still. And the third one is a political failure. And I would point to the Prime Minister or his government, because during the years, he preferred to strengthen Hamas indirectly, maybe, but strengthen Hamas at the expense of strengthening the Palestinian Authority, which are our real potential partners for peace, not Hamas. And this will have to be checked and investigated in due time. But first, we have to finish up the war, win over the Hamas, be sure that this is not repeated again, and this is not around, but this would be I would say, the elimination of the military capabilities of Hamas once and for all. This is a must.
Well, thank you. Those are three very lucid points, including the last one, that Netanyahu's policies indirectly strengthened the Hamas instead of the Palestinian Authority that could have been, that is opposed to the Hamas and could have been the more natural partners for some sort of dialogue process. Ambassador, I want to thank you again. I want to hope that you remain safe. I want to thank you in particular for sharing your story of being a terror victim and the fact that you lost your wife to terror. You speak from a very lived experience today. And again, you have served in India, so you know how the people of India feel at this point. Sending you all good feelings on behalf of my fellow citizens. Thank you very much, Ambassador Daniel Carmon. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much.